Good evening, I am Sir Georgios Alexopoulos Wolfschlegel Steinhausen Bergedorf of the 4th, but please just call me George for simplicity's sake. I am one of His Highness's spirits and for now I function as a stand-in for the Eldritch One's voice.
I apologize if you do not like my voice, but as the young master says,
get bent and off you fuck.
Good evening, Darklings. I'm back with some new bullshit. This time a guide for OCs. I'm already enraged, so let's get straight into it.
No, the biggest no-no for BIOS is putting something like unknown or NA in a bio category of a character.
First of all, why did you even include that category in your bio just to pass it up? It's an eye roll for a serious writer to see these things in bios. Even if the character or other characters don't know their name or even their age or parents, it should always be listed in the bio.
These are things that everyone has, unless they are a robot.
Okay, let's start with this shit. Sometimes NA categories are in fact needed. Let's look at Fairy Tail or My Hero Academia. Not everyone in that universe has quirks or magic. Ergo, not every OC for those universes would have them either. Ergo, they are non-applicable for those categories, and you can't just omit those categories because this is necessary information. Hell, sometimes characters don't have hair and can't put anything in the hair color category. Sometimes characters just straight up don't have eyes and are non-applicable for the eye color category. Unknown is a different ballpark. With just casual OCs, I agree, there shouldn't be any unknown information. But I've known creators to post characters and their bios before the whole story or comic or whatever comes out as a way to draw attention to their work. So some information has to remain unknown for plot reasons. The creator of Ember had to do this with their most recent video on their character 8.
Categories. I have included a blank bio form with all the categories I find to be necessary when explaining an in-depth, well-rounded character.
It's okay to maybe get rid of some categories for simplicity's sake, but some are obviously necessary.
On the other end of things, don't add too much.
Bios with too many categories are just as obnoxious to fill out as they are for other people to read.
Exclamation mark.
You want to have a bio form that you'll be able to fill out again and again as you develop your characters.
You may use my form included at the bottom, but only with credit. Don't add a category if you feel it can be described somewhere else. It's better to have only a few categories with long descriptions rather than a whole ton of extra one-line categories.
I don't have much to yell at here, just add the categories that are needed for your OC's specific world.
Name, first and last name.
No need to go into an exotic long name with a middle name unless you feel it necessary.
But everyone has a last name with the exception of a few special instances.
This actually depends on where your character comes from. Back in Old Norse and Anglo-Saxon days, last names were either a nickname you were given or an indicator on whose child you were, such as Loki Laufeyson, literally Loki, son of Laufey. And in 14th century England, people just used first names, until the plague happened and people migrated to less plague-filled villages. Suddenly there were 3 Johns with brown hair and green eyes, so people used professions to differentiate. It went from 3 Johns with brown hair and green eyes to John Carpenter, John Smith, and John Baker, easily identifiable men. And this isn't just a European thing. China was one of the earliest civilizations to use surnames, and even then they reportedly only took on family names roughly 3,000 years ago to help improve their census. I could be wrong, and please correct me if I am, but as far as I understand it, some last names came from the Warring States era as another way to discern where someone's from. So in both historical and fantasy settings, there are more than a few special instances as to why people do or don't have last names. Sorry, I just get excited when talking about shit I have weird knowledge on.
Choosing a well-flowing and original name that identifies your character and sets them apart from the other ones out there.
Oh, names to avoid. Luna is the #1 Mary Sue name for girls. I can't take any character named Luna seriously. Following up at number 2 is a girl with Alexandra, Alexandria, or whatever is her name, but she goes by Alex.
Once again, it depends on where and when your character is from, you goddamn dingus. If your character is from Taisho era Japan and is named Alexandria, then yeah, we're gonna have some issues. But if we're talking about Victorian era England and a young man named Alexander, then shit makes sense. And hell, characters' gender situation can also affect their names. I know, it's stereotyping, but show me one NB or transmasc that has a regular fucking name. Star, Rain, Stola, Solaris, Fern, every transmasc and NB with a rock name. Grim, Sox, Moss, Rowan, Haven, Quinn, Aspen, River, Lupin, Bee, Sprout, Leaf with an I, every astronomy name ever, Apollo, Artemis, Hera, Ares, Dionysus, Sage, hell, even my own names are Seraphim and Crow with a Q. Jesus Christ. Why did I do that in one breath?
I can't take those seriously as characters either, again, for their reputation as being Mary Sue names. Other overused names are Jake, James, Alex, Mel, Jenny, Sam, Girl, Rachel, Jack, Ryan, and Lily. A lot of these are very nice names, and I'm sure I have a few characters with those names too. But if you're making a new character, try to avoid these names, please. Pick something more original. Also, avoid using words for names that aren't really names.
This doesn't allow for people to be able to take your character seriously. Don't be lame.
You cannot take characters with these names seriously. Your weird gatekeeping is not the standard.
Originality, on the opposite spectrum of picking the normal common names, is taking an iconic name from somewhere else, trying to imitate. I couldn't take your character seriously if they were named Katniss, okay?
Iconic names and other such names created and not used from public domain are not public domain.
Nobody could take your character as anything but a rip-off if you use an iconic name.
God forbid you steal someone else's name that they made up for that character, including mine. I make up a lot of my own names and I do not permit any kind of usage of my things.
My stuff isn't public domain and I don't intend to let it be. If you're bored of names that are public domain, it isn't that hard to just make up your own. In fact, that's what I'd encourage.
You cannot copyright a name you should have been swallowed sperm cell. If we went by your logic, I'd be getting slapped left, right, and center by copyright infringement, this sexy McFog. And if I could, I would last name myself Bronwyn. I probably might at this point.
Age, depending on the setting, other characters in the story, you will have to keep this in mind as you describe the age. Personally, I think it's always best to include the birth year instead of writing an age for a character, unless they only appear in one book. But if that age ever changes, throughout multiple books and a timeline or something, you would do well to have a set birth year for your character so that you and your readers can keep them consistent at the proper age for the time.
If your story setting is vast into the future or on another world's timeline, you would probably have a hard time coming up with a birth year and would do best having another way of explaining it. So be smart about it then, eh?
You're also going about this in such a roundabout way. If in your theoretical world of this character being specifically for a book, just note down how old they are in each book. Simple. No need to make it such a big thing.
Appearance, your character doesn't have to have a one-of-a-kind genetic set and style to stand out. It's all about your take on ideas and weaving them together to bring them to life in a visual way.
Okay, but what if them standing out is part of the story? Your hypotheticals are only applicable in rare circumstances.
Build, describe their body shape and any distinctive features.
This will help paint a more accurate picture in someone's head as they try to imagine your character.
It's a necessary part of character description that is typically taken for granted. If you leave your character's body structure up to reader imagination, I guarantee they will not see your character how you see them. Oh skin, it isn't racist to describe your character's skin color and ethnicity. Creating characters with a variety of skin tones adds more charisma to your group overall.
Oh, ethnicity, to go with skin color, this adds character too.
What's their ethnic background?
Where were they born? Did they always live there?
Mixing in various cultures and creating an exotic group can really wow your reader.
Oh, hair, describe the color and style. There are a million different shades. Any color imaginable is valid, open game.
Describe length and how much curl there is at all.
Describe texture. Is it thick or thin?
Dry or greasy?
Do they frequently wear it up in a signature style? Go into detail. That's what a bio is for. Tell us.
Oh, eyes, same with hair, any shade is fair game. Are their eyes multi-tone? Are there flecks of another color in them? A fade?
Missing an eye.
Got a different eye shape?
Describe it. Also include if they have glasses. Oh, clothing, describe their style choice and the kinds of things they are likely to use in an outfit.
Any accessories?
Key objects.
You don't need to describe a full outfit, but give enough information for us to get the general idea.
You can negate a lot of these sections if you just have a reference image to your character. The only time you have to describe every look of your character is if, like in OP Trace shoving down our fucking throats, your character is in a pictureless book.
Species, lots of characters are human, but maybe yours isn't.
List their species so that we know, and if it's your own species you have the option of describing that a little bit too. Oh powers, what extra abilities does your character have? Tell us.
Be sure never to go into the op range, but describe your character's powers in a way you think is realistic and proportionate to the world they are in.
2 words. Fairy tale.
Personality, this is the most important and definitive part of your character. It shows us who they really are. Peel them like an onion.
Show us the side of them everyone sees, the things that only they know about themselves, and the things they don't know yet. If your character has development, show it here. Show their change from the person they used to be.
Don't let this category seem all over the place, but go about it in a structured and organized way.
Then maybe later review it and remove anything that breaks the harmony or doesn't belong. When developing a really fleshed out personality, I would suggest no less than 200 words.
Go fuck yourself! Writing personalities are fucking hard. Hell, I still just list personality traits, and I've been making characters for years. Again, it depends on the media. If it is a written story or anime or anything we can watch, then you should show us what kind of personality this character has, not tell us. If it's just an OC for fun, a small list is completely fine. Get bent with your 200-word minimum BS.
For realism, your character should be able to seem like a real person to us regardless of whatever world they're in.
They should have a clear definitive persona of their own, not related to real people per se, but deep enough that we can see who they are and how they got there.
Oh, originality, don't base off other people or characters. It's okay to be inspired by someone, but copying is stealing, and no one can take it seriously.
Add your own twist on an idea that you were inspired by and make it your own, enough so that only you will know where the ideas come from unless you choose to reveal it to people. I hate when people say there's no such thing as originality anymore, because that is so untrue. Exclamation mark.
Maybe whatever it is has been done before, but it's never been done by you.
You as an individual have the power to put your own twist on it if you so choose. It's effort, but if you really want it, you'll shake the lazies out and work for it.
Hypocrisy, thy name is... whatever the fuck your name is. That, and there is no such thing as true originality. Everything has been done a million times over, even if you think you're the first to do it. There is no such thing as true originality. Everything has been done a million times over. Sure, you can add different characters or a different way to get from start to finish. But at the end of the day, you cannot be 100% original. You cannot be 100% original ever, because everything's just been done already. And that's not a bad thing, don't mistake me. You can take the same concept and do it so much better than anyone else has, but you will not have the original concept.
Oh, likability, a completely original and well-developed character isn't necessarily likable. Be sure to add things in your character that will attract people to them, not in the cheap he's hot kind of way exactly.
I'm gonna go on a slight tangent here, because there seems to be this thing in the art community, that if a very conventionally attractive woman and a model for Sorcerer Weekly, her attractiveness is pointed out multiple times in the series, to the point where she is described as Fairy Tail's drawing card, and is oftentimes used for eye candy. There was an entire episode of it that one time, but her looks lull people into a false sense of security. Lammy, for instance, unknowingly fueling and healing Mira by pumping her full of demon particles, because Mira just looked like some hot woman. Which then led to her fight against Celia, and in which Celia inevitably got her shit rocked because she decided Mira Jane Strauss was the one to fuck with. Under that soft exterior is one of the strongest mages in Fiore, one of only 4 S-class wizards in the Fairy Tail Guild. Mira Jane is objectively terrifying, because she goes from looking harmless to breaking all the bones in your face at once if you make her little siblings cry. She is a character as complex as she is beautiful. I do her a disservice by describing her as just attractive and a good big sister. But for the sake of time, I will stop here. A character being attractive and having that as one of their main traits does not inherently make them a bland character.
But in the way that this character will leave people with a positive and lasting impression. You want your characters to stick in other people's minds for whatever reason, and I'm sure you'd rather it be for likability's sake rather than being annoying. ORELATABILITY, I can't tell you how little I care less about this and how much I am irritated when people say they don't like characters they can't relate to. Who cares?
Make a character who is well written and likable and doesn't sound like everybody else.
If a character is relatable to the general population, how much originality is in that character? Probably not much, if any at all.
Keep this in mind. Let your character rise up for being cool and well done.
I'm sorry, when the fuck was relatability a category in any sort of bio? It seems you're making up problems just to complain about it, and that's my job.
Oh, sanity, not everyone is mentally stable.
I am a shining example of this.
Not everyone who looks insane really is.
Not everyone who looks sane is alright in the head.
Expound on your character's psyche.
Most people have some kind of disorder tendency, however small. In other people it's more severe.
This doesn't have to be a negative trait or even a flaw depending on how you write it and how your character uses it.
Explain how their psyche changes with mood, people, and time.
I'll actually give you this. I don't often like agreeing with people, but you have a point. Media relies too much on characters showing their mental illness through dress, scars, or actions. When in reality, a lot of people who are mentally unwell do a brilliant job of masking it. Even people like me who commit the self-damage. We aren't all frothing at the mouth waiting to bite someone. The majority of us look normal and try to live relatively normal lives, despite how adversely it affects us. Which does us a disservice in the long run, because then people don't believe we're mentally unwell. Hell, even self-damage isn't only cutting straight lines into your arms or legs. You have the skin biters, those who neglect their own medical needs, and so many more I can't say because I like having monetization.
Oh, morals vary drastically from person to person. Maybe you want your character to be a mix of good and evil.
How are these two sides brought out of them?
Where and when?
How have their morals developed over time and why, if at all, have they changed?
Stop being agreeable, I don't like it. Again, another good point and something I plan to bring up in a future tropes video. Trauma and upbringing can drastically affect someone's morality. Not everyone agrees that removing someone's existence privileges is always a bad thing. Some people believe that life is precious no matter what. Others do not. Some people see the word drugs and go, bad druggie did it to themselves, must be punished. Whereas other countries see it as a mental illness and treat it accordingly. And life experiences can change this. To use one of my own characters for example, my half-dragon cleric Montag used to be a life cleric. He would value life above all no matter the crime, and in battle would only buff his allies, not attack someone directly. After some things that happened recently, he is now my Tempest cleric, who wants to solve most of his problems by sending someone into impromptu cardiac arrest. And he enjoys it. He who once protected life now brings death at the drop of a hat. And yes, Stormveiled storytimes will be a thing eventually.
Oh, people, extroverted or introverted?
What are their tendencies around people, specifically?
How do they treat certain people? What do they think of people or of society in general? Cultural influences. Oh, tendencies, what are their habits and mannerisms? Why do they change? How did they get them? Any neuroses? What's their behavior and how does it vary? How drastically?
What are their opinions?
How strong is their will? Oh, values, similar to morals.
People attribute worth and value to different things.
Why does your character value things?
What do they hold of highest importance? What's special to them? Strengths. Everyone has some kind of contribution they could make, whether they decide to take initiative or not.
Think outside your own ego for one moment. Maybe somebody else is good at something you wouldn't see as a good thing to be skilled at.
But they do. Or someone else does. Making a character isn't about you. It's actually about branching out to someone different from you. Oh, hobbies, skills. Not everyone is good at things you think are good, so be careful here.
People have a wide variety of habits, from things as significant as winning marathons to burping the alphabet backwards.
You may think the latter is lame or gross, but if your character is a 10-year-old boy, it might be the coolest skill to them.
Describe how good your character is at their skill also.
Maybe they just enjoy a hobby because it's fun and aren't necessarily good at it.
Oh, motivation. What can get them to achieve the goals?
What keeps them positive and focused? Can they actually focus at all? What's their passion or inspiration if they have one, or do they tend to lean towards zoned out zombie mode? Weaknesses. Everyone has flaws and things they're bad at. Not everyone is strong.
Some people are complete pushovers. Some people have out of control tempers. The weakness for one person might not be the same for others.
Add low skills. Add things they try and fail at.
Show fallibility. Without actual flaws that readers can see, your character is flat and not even really human.
Show us who they are at their worst.
Tell us what makes them crumble, break, and cry.
What can't they seem to overcome?
What did they struggle with before and then work past? No one is infallible or immortal.
Everyone has a weakness.
Likes. It's good to include other things your character enjoys. Anything from food to places, times of day, objects, temperatures, climates, types of year, anything that can add to who they are as a person.
Show what's significant to them. Also, describe what kind of music they like.
It's another good way to add to this picture of them you are painting in our minds.
Dislikes. What kind of music can't they stand?
What sets them off? What are their pet peeves?
What irks them? Any OCDs? Fears?
Worries?
Allergies? Friends. What crowd do they gravitate to?
Who do they get along best? Who is already their friend?
Who do they want to be their friend?
Who's their crew and why?
How many people? Any besties?
Are they social or popular? Enemies. What kind of people can't they stand?
Who is an instant turn-off? Who do they fight with? Who do they hate and for what reason?
Who are they afraid of? Love interest. What and who do they find attractive? Who are their crushes? Who do they love?
Who have they dated or married?
Family. Describe their family in as much detail as you find to be relevant.
It can be whatever from listing that they live with a single mom to listing a dozen people by name.
Do they have any kids?
Do they even know their family? Even if they don't know them, you as the creator do, so like all things your character doesn't know about themselves, include it in the bio.
This entire section I have no comment on. It's basic and surprisingly inoffensive, so I hope you enjoyed UG reading.
Backstory. If the backstory is a story in itself, there is definitely a bunch of stuff you should cut out. I think a good backstory is around 200 to 300 words and 400 is too long.
Backstory nearly as important as people think it is for the reason that the story is meant to show the character's development and change throughout time, and the bio is meant to show who the character is overall. You can certainly show development in a bio, but you've got to include who they were, who they are, and who they will be all at once.
The story is for showing the progression and going into detail about how the character grew and responded to their life changes.
The backstory's purpose is to give a short, concise life summary. Whether you decide to summarize their whole life or only tell who they were before the time of the story is up to you.
But keep it short. Exclamation mark. I can't stress how obnoxious long backstories are.
Oh, finally, something I can yell at. First you go too long with personalities, now too short with backstories. While a 400 word backstory, it's fine. The more details we have about why a character is the way they are, the better in my opinion. Take Arcane, the show, not my traumatized dragon. Now imagine just jumping into episode 2 with none of the context from episode 1, because that's what episode 1 functionally is. It is a beautiful work of backstory for our main cast, and that show wouldn't be the same without it. We wouldn't understand how Silco met Powder, how Vi ended up in prison, how Jason Victor meant. It's all important shit. I adore Jinx, but I would not feel the same about her if I didn't know what happened to her as a kid. The context of a character's actions is important. Just because you do not like long backstories does not mean they are bad or an unnecessary thing.
Oh, home life, what's their family like?
How do they get along?
How does it change throughout time?
Are they close to their family?
Where have they lived?
What was the home like? How often have they moved? How did they feel about that?
See, this is the kind of shit that could be covered in a longer backstory.
Oh, aging, depending on the character's age at the time of story, you can't always show much age-specific development. Maybe touch on a few impactful details of their past, but only what is relevant.
Oh look! More shit that could be implemented smoothly in a longer backstory, instead of just thrown somewhere in the bio.
Oh, career, what career path did they choose and why? How does it affect their life?
Oh, development, again it's up to you whether you want to summarize all their important life events, or only include backstory of who they were before major character development. Both are fine and equally valid backstories.
It's almost like backstories are important, you damn shitlock!
Asterisk bioform is no longer open for use by others but is just kept present here as a textual example. Name, age, appearance, species, personality, strengths, weaknesses, likes, dislikes, friends, enemies, love interest, family, backstory.
You can't claim a bio sheet? What in the gatekeepy bullshit? What, are you gonna go after everyone who has a bio like yours because you only included the most basic shit?
This is a generalized guide as basic as I could have made it. Trust me, I could have gone way more in depth with special instances and things but chose not to for the sake of keeping it simple, winking face.
Do it. Give me content, I dare you.
Here in this guide you can hopefully learn something new about how to develop your characters further.
Maybe you want to revamp an old character, add depth, or create something from scratch and didn't know how or where to start. I hope this has helped you, and if you have any questions or need further help I'd be glad to assist if I can.
I'm not going to make your character for you though. Show me what you make.
Tell me how this has helped you. I love hearing that.
I have plenty of other guides related to characters and writing, so feel free to check out my gallery.
That said, if you did not find this information helpful, then just walk away.
No.
There's no need to comment. Any comments saying how you could have written this guide better or whatever are unnecessary and will be hidden. I hate having to include this, but it's a sad fact of life that some people don't realize when to speak and when not to.
Oh look, I've spoken out of turn. Welcome to the internet, shitlips. You post a public opinion, people are allowed to criticize it, and say whatever the damn hell they want, even if you don't like it. Your lack of acceptance of criticism speaks volumes. It is freedom of speech, not freedom from consequence. And unlucky for you, my middle name is Consequence. Well, I do believe that's all this walking muppet has to say, and this video has gone on far longer than I think it needed to. But if there's something I have missed, I will make a part 2. I'm petty enough to do it. This person does have some decent advice, I will not deny them that. But it's mixed in with a bunch of bullshit personal preferences that they are spouting off as fact and lore. I will eventually drag Yuji to make a video on actual bio tips eventually, but for now, have a lovely evening, Darklings.